Hello and welcome to One Path for Wealth. I am your host, Jeremy Dicker, the Hebrew Hammer, with my good buddy, Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin, thanks for joining the show today.
Look at you, Mr. Host. I love it. This is so great. Glad to be here, buddy.
You're the best. Thanks for doing it. So, Kevin, you and I have known each other a long time now. And on the show, we try to really address all kinds of things, not just talking about what's going on in the economy or political or sports or parenting, but really kind of a myriad of all those things. And I thought, just to kick us off, I know a lot of the viewers and the listeners here that follow us have obviously seen and followed your amazing career. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your start. Obviously, I know it, being in the auto business at one point before you got full-time into broadcasting and then with the Mets. But I'd love you to take us down the path of how you got started in the career of broadcasting, a little bit about your background, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting path for me, I guess, when you look at it, but it's one that I wouldn't change for the world. I getting out of college, just got a job at a super small radio station, and that station and a lot of those other places sadly don't exist anymore, which is sad because it was a great starting point for someone like me just to kind of get some reps and get in the field. So I started doing like high school football. That was like my first gig, but I did everything there. I mean, I did promotions. I sold things. Like it was a small place, and there were 10 of us there, and you kind of did a little bit of everything. So it just started from that, trying to kind of get the ball rolling, and did like a lot of little things. Did minor league baseball for a few years, and just tried to climb the ladder. And then I kind of got stuck, and you get to a point where I don't know, I guess I was 8 years out of college and I wasn't really moving forward, and I thought I was good and couldn't get a bite. So I just quit and sold cars. And, basically I just got fed up, and I opened up the Sunday newspaper. I know a lot of people watching, like, what's a newspaper, right? I mean, it's sad, but right. Open up the Sunday newspaper classified. I just put my finger down. I said, all right, I'm going to do this. And I walked in, and, GM, Mike Tribino, who's now a really good friend of mine, was like, you ever sold cars before? I was like, nope. He's like, all right, you're hired. Start tomorrow. And so I just learned it on the fly, and did that for a year. But what it did is it kind of remotivated me to kind of get back on the horse. And it was a good break, and one that I needed. And I was dabbling a little bit still in, radio while I was doing it, but it kind of got me back. And he was one of my biggest supporters. Just said, hey, whenever an opportunity comes, let me know, and I'll let you go do it, because I worked hard for him. So it was a great opportunity to just go do that, and, just learn about really selling yourself and learn to ask for things, because the worst people could say is no. Like I'm a pleaser. So, I have a hard time saying no, or, worrying that I'm going to offend somebody. So it just, if you don't ask for stuff, you all know this. If you don't ask for stuff when you're selling things, well, obviously you're not going to sell it. So it just gave me a different perspective on that. And it really changed my mindset. I started asking for things, and people started saying yes. Like, hey, I want to come audition at your station. That's how I got in WFAN. I literally called, Eric Spitz, who I'd worked for before and known, and became a friend. I was like, I think I'm good enough to work at your place, and I want to come audition. He's like, all right, come in Friday. And I was like, really? Wow. So it was a good life lesson for me. That whole year off was really important. And I think it kind of shaped a lot of the things that I knew, and gave me some new things that I didn't know. And then from there, I got some breaks. I started working at CBS, WCBS Radio, and WFAN in New York. And then I transitioned into TV, and I did TV for the Mets for 8 years. And now I've been at Fox for 13 years already. It's kind of, It's kind of crazy. This will be my 13th NFL season coming up. So yeah, pretty awesome.
Wow. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you'd be here broadcasting the World Series, broadcasting these NFL games with one of the greatest, if not the greatest, football player of all time, Tom Brady? And obviously you guys are great with one another, but did you ever think that this was something that would be happening to Kevin Burkhardt?
No. I mean, you always dream about it, right? When you get into this, Jared, it's like, of course, like you would hope to be in these moments and be on these stages. When I was younger, like I always dreamed about and pretended in the tape recorder calling a Super Bowl. But you just don't know where life's going to take you. You can only work hard and work smart to put yourself in a position where hopefully you get those opportunities. And I know there's a little luck involved too. Let's be real. It's like anything else. You have to there is a luck quotient. I think you got to be good. I think you got to work hard. You got to have timing be on your side. So, No, I never thought that in a million years. So, I mean, I think that's why I appreciate every second of it, that I get to sit here and be with these superstar athletes and, kind of, be their co-host, their play-by-play person, their friend. Like it's awesome, And, last year I'm doing the World Series and, I'm hanging out with Derek Jeter and Big Papi and A-Rod. And then on Sunday I go hang out with Tom Brady. It's like, what is my life right now? It doesn't even make any sense, So if you would have told 15-year-old me, I would have been like, pinching myself all over. So I still kind of am, even at 51. That's why I love it so much.
That's amazing. And so let's talk about that for a minute. So when was it that you first realized that you were good enough, that this was the career for you, that you were going to really be able to make a mark, not necessarily to where you are today and you knew that was going to happen, but when did you first realize you were good enough and that you were ready to really go to the next level?
I always wanted to do it. I mean, from the time that I can remember from when I was younger. I mean, probably when I was 10 years old, I wanted to announce games because I always paid attention to the announcers and they always made an impact on me when I would watch sports, and I love sports so much. And, so I got involved in my high school TV station, my college TV station heavily. And I'd hoped to do it. And then when I thought that I could really do it, I would say probably when I got to WFAN, because at the time that was like the biggest sport. Well, it still is. It's the biggest sports station in the country. It's really the station that revolutionized sports talk radio. And so when I started there and got some reps there, I was like, okay, like I feel like I could hang. Like I could hang at the big boys table and be in this world. And that's when I probably first felt like I could really do it. Like, I always believed in myself, and push myself, but you kind of need some of those results to be seen, right? You want to see like you believe it, but until you really get the opportunities. And I'd had a lot of great opportunities leading up to that point. But when I got there, especially like with, Mike and Chris, it was Mike Francesa and Chris Russo, who were iconic. And like, it's all we listened to as kids. So when I got to work with them, I was like, okay, like, I feel like I could be you're at the little kids table on Thanksgiving, then you're at the adult table. I feel like I moved up to the adult table.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously you've got to prepare, and you prepare a lot every day. I can't imagine that you're just going in there free in it. You're in there really prepping yourself. Talk a little bit about the prep. What is it that your days are involved in doing, getting ready? I mean, you're kind of like Deion Sanders, right? You're doing football, you're doing baseball. You've got to be well prepared on both sides. It's funny. I just saw I think it was the 30-30 episode talking about how Deion what a unique enigma he was. Certainly for me, watching him and Bo Jackson, those two sports stars, and phenomenal. But like for you, you're a two sports star. You're not only well versed on football and everything that goes around there, but also baseball, the World Series. Talk a little bit about your prep for a minute for those weeks that you're covering both sports, and just in general. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
I always equate it when I talk to people, especially like kids, when I give speeches to kids, or, it's like studying for a midterm, right? So when you're on TV, that's the midterm. So if you don't study for a midterm, you're going to get crushed. And, you put in the effort and you put in a lot of time on task, and, it's watching games, it's reading articles, it's talking to people around the sport, and just build up your knowledge base. And study the most you can study. And then when you go, the midterm is the difference is you're free fall for, however many hours you're on the air. There's no delete button. There's no edit button. So you have to be prepared. I'll give you an example. Like this last week, we had for Fox baseball, Saturday baseball, we had 2 games on Fox and 1 game on FS1. So I was doing pre and post game for those. And initially we weren't on television for all that long. We were there all day, but like our total minutes on TV weren't that long, because it just depends on how long the games go, what's on before and after these games, all those factors, right? So, well, all of a sudden there was rain at literally every game in the country, and we were on the air for like 3.5 hours on Saturday. Wow. You have to be prepared. So like I go in Saturday and, knowing that this is always a possibility, I'm not only prepared to talk about the games that are on our air, I'm prepared for the league. Because we ended up doing everything imaginable. We did 3 hours of television that we weren't supposed to do. So none of it was scripted until like that moment. Because all of a sudden, multiple games and rain delays, we're on the air. So right. If you don't have that base of knowledge in that background, how can you fudge that for 3 hours? And you can fake it for 10 minutes. You can't fake it for 3 hours. So it's just a constant, like you're constantly studying and keeping up on the sport, and being relevant in it. Otherwise, you can't pull stuff like that off. You can't do an NFL game, Jared, on Sunday and be on television for 3 hours without an edit button if you don't know your shit. Like that's just the reality, you know. And
Right.
and then a lot of it is just reacting and you know, having your mind go with the flow and working as a team. But like basis of it is that's how I quit. You're studying for a midterm every time you're on TV.
That's amazing. Yeah, it always looks like you guys are so well prepared, and the way you handle and work with these other unbelievable talents. Egos have got to be involved, I assume. Just as you're thinking about who you're going to throw what ball to, and obviously, I'm a diehard baseball fan. You know that we've talked about that a bunch. Diehard Dodger fan, and love them, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But I'd love to hear how you think about. Maybe it is scripted to some extent, but how you think about having that stage with Big Papi, with A-Rod, with Jeter, God rest his soul, Pete Rose when he was there. How do you think about what questions to act or to ask, or how to engage these guys in a way that comes off to the viewer as completely seamless? Like, how do you think about that when you're going about it?
I think it's a couple of things. Number one, I've been extremely lucky. Like everybody that I've worked with is so awesome and so easy. I mean, all the guys you mentioned, I worked with Frank Thomas for 10 years, who I love. I mean, so many football partners before Tom, and, Greg Olson and Charles Davis and Daryl Johnson and John Lynch. I worked with so many amazing people at Fox that I'm leaving out here. I can't name everybody, but so that's number one, right? Number two is I think it's relationships. Like you have to, I'm not saying you have to be best friends with everybody you work with, but I think there has to be a relationship and a trust there. Not only, for me to them, but they have to trust me that I'm going to lead them in a spot they want to go, that I'm not going to put them in a bad spot, and pin them in a corner with a tough way to get out of it. And the way that is spending time together, time on task, talking about what they think and what they believe in, and what's interesting to them about the game. So I know like their hot points. Sometimes simple things like just going to dinners and getting drinks is important. Like you build a relationship and know, what makes them tick. And then when you know what makes them tick, it's easier to throw, where their sweet spot is. If they like it low and inside, I could throw a fastball low and inside when I need to, because I know what their hot buttons are. And I also know what they don't like. So, I try to, Jeremy, my goal is basically to be the point guard. Like in any role, even though the roles are different, my role is always it's not about me. It's about the analyst. Like no one cares what I say. They want to hear what Tom Brady has to say. So like, I just want to be a point guard and throw an alley-oop and have them dunk it in. If I could do that, then I'm happy. So that's the way I look at the job. Like you really are the point guard. You're dishing, you're putting people in spots to succeed. And that's what I try to do.
Well, you do it better than anybody, man. I'll tell you, you're incredible.
Thanks, bud.
One of the things that sticks out of my mind, I'd love to hear your opinion too. One of the greatest episodes I've ever seen was when Pete Rose was on with A-Rod, and I think it was also
Frank.
And Frank.
Yeah.
And that was by far one of the coolest things. It gives me goosebumps now as I think about watching what I watch as a lifelong baseball fan, as just someone that just loves it. What are some of your memories about some of your most amazing experiences over the course of your broadcast career? Some things that just really stick out as, oh my God, I can't believe that one.
Yeah, that was a great one. The one you're talking about, they did this viral 10-minute hitting video. The best part about that video is it wasn't on a show. It was after we did a show, and we did like a demo during a show. And then when the show ended, they just stayed there and started talking hitting, and we recorded it. And it turned out it wasn't a planned thing at all. None of that was planned. And I think that's the best. Those are the best parts of television sometimes. It's like there are certain things that are obviously planned and that you talk about and you try to execute. And then there are plenty of things which you just have to react to. So I think some of the best moments in TV are just reaction moments, right? Like you can prepare all you want to call a game. And we obviously do. And we think, okay, if this happens in the game, we're going to do this. We have this idea, this video, whatever it is. But then a game breaks out and it goes like nothing like you thought it was going to go. And then you have to react to that. So I think those are the best moments in TV. I think there's been so many cool moments I've been so lucky to be involved in. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to call 2 Super Bowls, which has been off the charts great. At baseball, there's been so many amazing moments. I think being in Chicago for the Cubs World Series run in 2016 to break the curse was pretty epic. I don't know that anything will top that. That was historic. But I just truly enjoy the time, JD, with like the people. I really do. You know me, like I'm a people person. I enjoy spending time with my guys and laughing and shooting the breeze. And like, hopefully that kind of shows on the air. I think that's as fun as any of it. So I just cherish the moments. Like I think that's great. And the rest, I'm just lucky to be in these cool spots and have this really amazing seat to these big moments. It's a lot of fun.
Well, it is pretty spectacular to watch, I'll tell you that, and enjoyable every minute of the day for me that I get a chance to kind of see you work. And obviously, I know you very well over the years.
Yeah.
We've gotten to each other very, very well, and your wonderful family. Let's shift gears for a minute and talk a little bit about some of these contracts. I mean, we're seeing record deals almost daily, it feels like, where Soto's signing a deal on top of Shohei's deal. And we'll talk a little bit about football too, but just to the extent we have the time to do so. But talk a little bit about some of this baseball. This is just insanity, right? I mean, there's dollars that you've never seen getting spent on talent that is just seemingly unstoppable. What are some of your thoughts about what's going on in the game? Is it good for the game? Is it not? I mean, I'm a diehard Dodger fan, so the Mets doing what they're doing, it's cool to watch, but certainly not. I want to see my Dodgers go all the way. But what are some of your thoughts about what's going on in the game, and is it sustainable? And what is just some of your general feelings?
I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I think it's great for the players and they're worth it. I mean, they put their bodies on the line and bust their hump, entire year, and they're worth it. And it's worth it in, obviously you're hoping wins, but really in marketing dollars, in fan support, and people come to the stadium. I mean, you brought up Shohei, that his contract is worth 100 times that. The Dodgers have basically monetized Japan, behind Shohei. So I don't care what they could pay him 1.5 billion and it wouldn't be enough in my mind. So I think from that aspect, it's great. The players deserve it. And by the way, sometimes I know people are like, man, it's crazy money. There is a value. And, I am all, by the way, and I know you are too. I know you will. I'm all for everyone getting as much money as they can. Like, yep. And like not necessarily comparing, right? I think they deserve it. What I will say about baseball is where the problem lies is not every owner wants to win. And, the reality is obviously the NFL is in a different, it's a different thing with revenue sharing and every game's national. It's a different place. You can't really do that in baseball. It doesn't make sense. And now all these teams have not all these teams, the big teams have their regional networks that are worth billions and they have a different money stream. Right. But, I think that's a problem that's got to be fixed, because I think the reality is every year there just aren't enough teams who have the resources. I'm not sure there's enough teams that really can go all in if they wanted to go all in. And I'm not sure there's enough teams that really care if they win, if they're like, they want to see at the bottom of the Excel spreadsheet that they're in a plus, not a minus. So I think it's great for the players. And I think it is great for the sport to have great teams. I think that's a good thing. I just wish more teams would come along for the ride. And I think that's something that has to be fixed at some point.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about 25 years ago or so when Frank McCourt bought the Dodgers from the O'Malley family. And I think it was some such number like 400 million or something, if memory serves me correctly. And now to think about what the Dodgers are spending, they're spending that plus on one or two contracts, and that's what the team sold. And then you start thinking about all these other teams and the stratospheric deals and the money. What I always worry about is at some point, do these teams all become private equity owned or corporate purchase teams because that mom and pop, that owner that had that team, can't do it anymore. And fortunately, we still are seeing a lot of the Steve Cohens out there and the Guggenheims seem to operate the team as a family, but as you think about some of these numbers, it's pretty remarkable.
I think it's fair. I think it's a fair question. And that's why, baseball's got a disparity, right? I mean, I think because I think that's where you're headed. The reality is once you get to the level that some of these are getting to, like how many people in the world can afford to spend that without some kind of hedge fund or multiple owner situations? It's different than it used to be. So I don't know. Jeremy, I think it's going to be interesting, right? I think it's great to have big time teams spending big time dollars, but what you don't want is you don't want to have the Dodgers and the Mets, and then the Marlins and the Rays. Like if the Dodgers and the Mets are here, you want to have them here, not like off the chart. Like that's what's got to be fixed.
You want parity. Absolutely. You want parity to some extent. And I also think it's really interesting, as much money as they can, as any team can spend. And again, coming back to my team, the Dodgers, they've had a tremendous number of injuries again this year. You've got a number of guys on the IL. They had to do a bullpen game when, in fact, when they started the year thinking they were going to have 7 or 8 starters. And
I mean, they have 13 starters, and somehow they're doing. It's great, but like that being said, just because you spend all the money doesn't mean you win, right? It's like there's a lot of other factors in it. So
it's true. In fact, it's funny. I was reading an ESPN article over the weekend about ranking the top 30 teams through April, and Dodgers got a B grade, and at the bottom they're commenting about the weakness of the bench and all that. And oh, by the way, they're still on track to win 110 games.
The best record in the league. That's the funny thing is, like, the expectation is so stupid high. I think people want them to win 130 games. Like it's a double-edged sword. Like, yeah, all this stuff, got it, pitching injuries, they do, bottom of the orders in hitting, their depth is tested, and they got the best record in the sport. Okay. So
wild. And then you look over at on the other coast, look at what Aaron Judge is doing. Is he just superhuman or what?
He's amazing, man. It's also, when you think about, if he didn't hurt himself at Dodger Stadium a couple years ago running into the fence, that's been the only down point in the last 5 years of his career. I mean, his numbers are outlandish. We put some on the air last week about him. You're trying to, how else can you show his greatness in a 162 game span, which, you could make to manipulate numbers. You can make it at any point, but coming off that great April, you go back 162 games. So for those who don't know, that's a regular season. And who else has the OPS, the numbers that he does in that span? And the answer was 3 other people. It was Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, and Bonds. That was it. There's 4 people in the history of the sport that have put up those kind of numbers in a regular season span. He is the most feared hitter and the best hitter since Bonds. And I know there are others in that category, like Shohei's obviously amazing, but Judge he's stupid, and he's gotten better. Like, he doesn't strike out as much. He doesn't swing out of strike zone as much. He's incredible. He is an incredible player.
And it appears to be one of the nicest guys in the sport too.
Well, you better be nice to him, because he's a 6'7" giant. I mean,
yeah, that's right. His head is huge. That is one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and honestly, all these guys are so cool and just normal people off the field. So it's fun.
So we're coming to our time together, but I'd like to touch a little bit on in the remaining time that we've got, just a little bit of some of the injuries that we're seeing right now. What are some of your perspectives or things that you're hearing around the league as to what this seemingly waterfall effect of so many arm injuries, just injuries in general? I mean, I know you've got a son now, college age. I've got a young boy at 10 years of age playing baseball, and it's a 4, 5, 6 day affair. I mean, what are some of the things you're hearing or seeing with all these injuries, and what do you make of it?
You're talking about arm injuries specifically,
yeah.
Pitching injuries.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a lot of different theories. And I think, for example, when you talk to John Smoltz, my partner at Fox, who does our games, my teammate at Fox, Joe Davis, is his partner in the booth. But, obviously he comes from a time when all he did was pitch, pitched 1 million innings a year, and then turned over and became one of the best closers in the league, and then went back to being one of the best starters in the league. And he thinks it's certainly, underuse of these guys in the minor leagues. And not to speak for him, but the way these guys are used, and they're almost, they're show ponies. They want to protect them. They're in a glass case. There was an interesting article written by Jared Diamond. I read this like a few weeks ago, and I thought it was such an interesting way to look at about what the Giants' thought process is. And there might be a lot more teams that are thinking this, by the way. I'm just basing it off this one article. But the thought was that they are making their minor leaguers go back and pitch and boost their innings in the minor leagues and throw, because the idea was, well, if you're training for a marathon, you're not like running once a month. You're going to run, and you're going to run some more, and you're going to run some more, and you're going to train your body and train your legs to do it. And we've kind of gotten away from that. These guys are all throwing 105 miles an hour. It's crazy how hard they throw. They barely build up their arms. They're not allowed to go and throw that much in a calendar year. So it's like, I don't know if that's the answer. But I do know we've had more injuries than ever. And I think guys are throwing harder than ever. That's part of it. But I do kind of believe that. I do think that sometimes it's just like And I get it, the money involved, and you're trying to protect arms, but it feels like we're doing the opposite by limiting workload and just like changing the rules instead of building up and working and building up the arm strength. I don't know. That seems like that could be the answer to me.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's interesting. I have a good friend of mine here in town, Mike Hampton, who played 17 years in the big leagues, and
Sure.
he's got some of the same perspective. We were having drinks not too long ago, just about kind of life and these pitchers. And he threw 350 innings a year, which is unheard of now. And you look at him and had a very long career. Certainly did have TJ surgery, but came out of it and continued to have a pretty amazing career. So it is interesting. It was, man. So I guess, as we come to close out the show today, what are some of the things you're most excited about? Either sport, football, baseball, in life in general. What are some of the things you're really looking forward to over the next year, 2 year, 3 years, this year? What are some of those things?
Let's see. I mean, I'm just for sports, for work, I just love to continue to be at these really, really cool events. Like we got the All-Star game coming up in Atlanta in July. Those are always so much fun to be at. And then, the NFL and, for me personally, I get to go back and forth in October and do the NFL and then do the baseball playoffs. And it's just such a fun ride. Don't sleep much, a lot of caffeine, but it's such a fun ride. And I love it so much. And then now, I get a little downtime. So, I just love taking trips with the fam and going, we went to Japan not too long ago and it was amazing. I know you did as well. Yeah. So just getting a chance to travel with family and see places. I love exploring new things and getting good meals and a nice bottle of vino and in another place, So anytime I get a chance to do that, JD, I'm in. I know you are too.
Well, when we're together in July, we're going to have to do that together.
Done.
Kev, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kevin Burkhardt. I am Jeremy Dicker, the Hebrew Hammer. Thanks for listening to our show, One Path for Wealth. If you like it, please make sure you click like on the like button online and make sure you subscribe to that as well as our weekly blog. Have a great day. Thanks again, Kev.
See you, man.